Hello everyone, my name is Liana and I am the host of NEVERWORNS, a show in which I talk to fabulous people about clothes that they don't wear and why. And today I am with a very good friend who I very much respect, Mellany Sanchez. And she is not just a good friend of mine. No, she is the most in-demand consultant in New York and a fantastic stylist with a roster of stellar clients and brands. So, Mellany, how are you doing today?
I'm doing so well. I'm so happy to be sitting here with you in a suit, suited and booted.
I know, I'm like ready to sue you. So get it suited, like sue. Wow, I'm gonna keep my day job. Okay, so I want to know, what are you wearing today? Because this is a very Mellany pant. This woman pays attention to detail, and there is such a delicious cut right in the front. So tell me, what's going on here?
Thank you. I love that detail too. I'm wearing Gabriella Cole leather pants. She's a young Spanish designer, and I got these off Essence. She also makes this shirt. The shirt is Loro Piana Super 150s, which is my favorite suiting fabric. And I'm wearing vintage Prada boots, got off the Real.
Pointy boot brigade. Kissing. So Mellany, I'm very interested to see what is in your closet for these NEVERWORNS, because I don't know, you have a great closet, great t-shirts, great sneakers, and then great designer pieces, great vintage pieces. Okay. Leather pants are great.
They're pretty cool,
incredible,
right?
A good butt moment, I have to say.
Yeah.
It's a good butt moment.
Yeah. Let me check my hair really fast.
Okay, we're primping.
I'm gonna just make sure I'm giving you.
Yo, I literally look like Wolf of Wall Street right now.
You do. It's just the good Super 150s fabric. Like, if you're not doing suiting out of this fabric, I'm not sure what you're doing.
Mic drop. Very always dedicated to quality. That's what I love about you too. You're not digmatized by a label or a designer. It's always been quality for you.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I feel like ever since I started buying clothes for myself, it's been about, and even I feel like when my parents were buying clothes for me, it was about just like quality over quantity, like what's going to last the longest. Like, I grew up in a household, my mom was even thrifting, and she was looking for the best that she could find even when she was thrifting. You know, like that was the point of even going in there, was like the idea of finding something that was maybe not really in our budget, but you could find it secondhand. I grew up on the border of Brooklyn and Queens, and my mom used to go into the like Williamsburg area where there was like the amazing Jewish communities who would be submitting so much great children's clothes to the thrift.
There was a lot of kids.
So actually all of my like childhood photos, a lot of them I'm wearing like epic pea coats and like gorgeous like designers that were kind of like, you know, when you shop in the Williamsburg area, like there's a lot of like kind of custom kids boutiques where like they're not carrying clothes that you can find anywhere else, but a lot of that was in my wardrobe growing up because we used to thrift in that area because my mom loved the quality. So we've been a quality family and just like thrifters from the jump.
Oh, you hear that? Mellany's an ally. We love that.
Yeah.
You're Shayna Punim. You know what that means? It means pretty face in Yiddish. Okay, so I want to know, I see some Celine, and it has the accent, so it's not Michael Kors era. Unfortunately, it's the best era of Celine in my opinion. But it's his, what?
Sure about that.
Well, okay, I also like to look like an oligarch's wife who's like stepping off of a private jet. You like the Phoebe.
Yeah, I do. I have a lot of Phoebe in my closet, and I think I will continue to add from that collection, probably for the rest of my life.
Wait, so why do you like Phoebe Celine so much?
I feel like in my like formative, like younger, like Tumblr years, like that was the designer that I thought was designing for the woman that like when I used to be like a teenager and I used to be like at home thinking about the woman I want to be in the world, you know, like sitting on the train, looking out at like whoever.
Reading Joan Didion. Joe, just kidding. I was dirty. I just did you dirty.
You did. You love doing people dirty with a Joan Didion hit, actually. And I feel like I definitely like put hours and hours into that kind of thinking when I was a teen, and like just in New York, you grow up, you're on the train, like you're just kind of like incognito and like watching the world. When all that time was going down, I really like just loved who Phoebe was kind of presenting as the woman to potentially be, or how she dresses, how she thinks, how she looks at art, and I learned so much from her. And I think about brands like, you know, Celine in that era, or you think about like Supreme over the past 20 years, it's kind of like who has really been educating me to have a sort of like eye and taste and like towards artists and musicians and worlds and interesting brands, and like those are forever bonds because they taught me, you know? So that's how I feel about Phoebe and Celine. I'll always shop that collection.
You know, I actually remember we had a conversation a while back about brands and storytelling. We had a big conversation about Supreme, and you said, you know, part of the reason why people love Supreme all these years is because there's a story, there's a reference, you know, and there's a history to be told with however they're designing.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. There's a reference and there's a lesson, right? Like, I feel like if you have like, you have a guy in your life and he like teaches you something, you're like,
okay, who is that? Name one.
No. Well, if there's anything to be remembered about a person, I think it's like, did they put you on to something? Did they teach you something? Did you like walk away like feeling like more knowledgeable or more interested in something?
I think this should also be a moment when you're buying something in a way. You can translate that philosophy into what you're buying. Like, am I learning something from what I'm buying? What role does it have in my life? It's not mindless buying. You're really putting thought into what you're buying.
Yeah.
And that's like your partner or your friends.
Exactly. It's like where you're putting your money. I feel
Yeah, why have you worn it?
I mean, you know, trench coats are hard. And weirdly, I have like 4 in my closet. I've got this like beautiful, like, I've got 2 leather ones, and they're like, one is old Tom Ford Gucci, the other is Burberry. And I feel like when I step out in those, it feels like more of a moment because it's like a texture story with those, because they're leathers. This piece has been in my closet for a few years. I bought it at the Webster in Miami in 2018, which I love that shopping experience. So when I like invested in this piece, I feel like I had really good intentions to be like, this is another like Celine hitter, definitely need it in my closet, definitely going to get the most wear out of it. And then I've just never worn it, right? And
You've never ever worn it.
oh, I think like,
And you got it in 2018. What were you doing in 2018 at that point?
I would have been in Miami then because I was working with Drake at the time. So I used to live on the road, and we must have been in Miami for some sort of work. And, you know, shopping was a big part of my role. So I was constantly scanning the stores. And I think when I saw this piece, I just, I felt like this is like a staple entry into my closet. And then over time, it's kind of exposed itself to not be because I haven't really worn it. And I think it's hard to part with, or it's hard to kind of like make peace with the fact that like a Celine piece from that era doesn't work for me. And I think that's why it like sits there, because I'm like, one day it will be like, of course it will, you know, I have all these hopes for it. But like, I guess I bring it today because I'm like, is it really needed for me? Is it actually the kind of trench that brings me like good outfits, you know? Does it like get me out the door? Like, it doesn't, you know?
This is why I'm the worst to talk about minimal, like Celine, Phoebe minimalism. I like Phoebe
Also,
when she was at Chloe.
Everything today is going to be on the level of minimalism today. That is the day. That is the story.
delete this footage. I think if you have a Tom Ford Gucci coat, leather, you know, I think if you have other things that you are wearing and this one just sits in the back and you already have, how many trenches do you have in your closet?
I think I have the 2 leathers, the Tom Ford Gucci, and then this Burberry leather, which is like caramel. The other one's kind of like olivey. They're really good. I don't have a black trench, so that's kind of why this made sense for a while, but yeah.
Listen, if you want to have a black trench, I don't think you need this. I think you should part with it. I think you should sell it. I think you should make room in your closet for like maybe another Phoebe Celine piece.
Right. I like serious.
She's serious. I'm a serious woman too.
I like austerity. I like leather. I like textures. I like a texture story when I wear clothes, you know, a quality story. I also like to look like $1 million fucking bucks. Like, I like to really look like quality.
You always look expensive.
No, thank you. Expensive is actually like the first kind of like lens I put forward with like my outfits, I guess. And that has nothing to do with money, by the way. So
yeah, no, I want you to explain that a little bit more.
I think like looking expensive for me is just about quality. And I think when we talked about we're thrifting, we're buying things secondhand, there's a million ways to do that now. It's about investments. It's also about like tailoring, you know, like I would put more money towards tailoring than I would towards like the ticket price on an item, you know, and I think that's about, you know, making sure your pants hit the right spot on the break of your shoe, you know, like the break needs to be right. The break can be the whole budget, you know, like I think that that's the point of a look, you know. I went the other day to get some boots, kind of, what do you call it when you get them reheeled? Like resoled. I had some boots resoled. Yeah, I feel like that's the best way to start your fall is to like resole all your boots, and then you're like, now I can step out.
Mellany's tip. Seriously though, these things were down to the nub, nasty nub. No one likes a nubby boot. Like you need to get the heels redone. You need to get the soles. Like don't. Seriously, I see girls. They buy expensive boots, new boots, and then you see them
and they're leaning. You're just like, you know, like you can't tip over. Like you have to maintain things.
Okay. Just throwing her down. Ooh, mama. Okay, so we're undressing her. Mellany, what is in this Prada body bag? Oof.
This is a good old leather. Oh, la, la. This one's a good one.
Yo, it's like butter.
And it has this racing stripe here and like a kind of cardinal with white. It's just a good one.
She's not getting rid of this. I've never heard you speak so seductively. There's like the seduction in her voice turned on. I know. I love that we had to put her in the bedroom.
Yeah.
You know, it's craftsmanship at its finest. The leather is incredible. Right here, the sleeve detail is insane. Come here, get a close up.
So if we're talking about why I haven't worn this, I guess it's big on me. It's a men's jacket. And it's an interesting piece in terms of like NEVERWORNS, because why I don't wear it is because it's big, and why I don't edit it is because I kind of think about it for clients and for styling and just sort of for future moments, maybe for a bigger person, maybe a man, maybe a woman, and someone who can kind of carry it. So it's been this piece that's in my closet that kind of holds this interesting limbo space where it's like, damn, like if this was fit for me, I'd wear this all the time. So do I convert it into a piece for me? Do I go and have like probably, you know, like an expensive tailoring job to have this piece remade for me? Or do I kind of hold on to it with this idea that this is going to be one day for someone else and their moments? And so that's where this one sort of exists.
Okay, I'm itching to ask you something. Have you ever put a client in it since you've bought it?
Not really, no.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you right now, this is my prescription as a NEVERWORNS doctor. Yo, you love tailoring. I love tailoring. It's too good not to be worn, and it doesn't sound like you're not going to have the client in this case. I'm sorry, but still, hire Mellany. Get this tailored for you. Seriously, it is so seductive. I mean, I honestly want someone to start playing Kenny G right now. This is
It's almost like, can I try this on?
Yes, try it on.
My own jacket.
Yes.
I feel like I just need to show you how it's like, it's almost there for me, and then it just needs a little work, you know? Like it's got a big sleeve, but it's like, it could get there quick, you know?
Yep. Mellany, get it tailored.
Too sweet?
It's good. I'm gonna send you to my girl Ornella.
Okay, yeah. I feel like Christopher Moltisanti in this fucking jacket.
Hot. Sopranos.
Myself in the mirror now. Yeah, it's almost
Mellany,
there.
it's almost there. You just need some like nip and tuck and you're good. The whole concept of NEVERWORNS is to remind yourself about your closet, to go through it and be like, oh, maybe I do want to keep that, like the Prada jacket. Maybe I do need to get rid of that. Maybe I do need to shine my shoes. Maybe I do need to get that tailored. Like the whole concept of NEVERWORNS, this is something that you can apply in your own daily life, is go through your closet, reevaluate, and then just do.
Yeah. I love that. It's a reinforcement of your values.
It's like some Ouija board, trying to figure out what's in here. So, okay, open her up.
Okay, so these are these.
What are they?
These are Air Force Ones from 2004 that are fully black leather, which matters because a lot of production on footwear now, including Air Force Ones, is usually, you know, PU, so it's not real leather. So
wait, PU?
Like polyurethane.
Oh, I thought you meant like PU, like ew.
The fact that these are black leather is pretty awesome compared to the fact that, like, you know, nowadays a lot of footwear is made of plastic materials. So love these for that reason. These are really interesting models because they like I said, are leather, but then they have a steel toe. These are steel toe. These are steel toe Air Force Ones. So like obviously you need that in New York. You know?
Dead ass! Okay, Mellany's just gonna hit me in the face with that toe.
Sometimes these go by the Swats. They're from 2004. I have this sort of really connected experience to purchasing them because I bought them at a shoe store that was really important in Brooklyn. And, you know, all throughout the sort of 80s and 90s, early 2000s, survived the changing kind of atmosphere of retail around footwear and kind of, you know, it just feels like one of those gem spots where you can still find old pieces. And I would go to this guy.
What was the shoe store?
I really don't say these things usually. Because I don't put out my spots. The spot is now closed. It was called Spicy Action.
I mean, you have a long history of being in the sneaker world, and I just want you to expand a little bit more on that for our viewers.
Yeah, I mean, I talk so much about the sneaker store. Actually, I had went to Spicy Action for a job when I was like 16 or 17 years old because I was so enamored with the way that they had new and older models kind of present. They didn't hire me, but I ended up working at another sneaker store. I worked at David Z for 3 years, which if you've been in New York throughout the 90s or the 2000s, you know, David Z was like a really important chain that used to be up and down Broadway and used to be on 8th Street and had several locations around New York. They're now closed, but I worked there from my high school years, like from 16 to like almost like 19 years old. And that experience for me was so important because it's how I fell in love with product, you know? Mm-hmm. I think that was when I kind of realized, damn, people buy things and then they feel like themselves, you know? And I think that became something really interesting to me to be part of. And originally it was through this kind of retail experience of selling and getting to know product and being, you know, like whip fast and smart and knowing how to style people and talk to people about product. I think I started to really like pride myself on that. And I was a damn good salesperson. I mean, you hear this right now? But it's like, I loved sales. I loved talking to people about like, why that shoe? Why for you? Why now? You know, why the investment? And I think I used to love watching how people like made these decisions about buying things for themselves in a way that made them feel like that's how they become who they are, you know, like this model versus that model, or, you know, those kind of choices became really interesting to me to observe and be part of. My parents kind of made sure that I was wearing a lot of like classic footwear when I was young, and I think that those became staples that
like what
me. You know, I grew up wearing like, you know, white on white Nike Air Force Ones, which look like these, but the low. I think I wore a lot of like gray New Balance 574s when I was young, which is kind of like your standard shoe.
Aren't they back now?
I feel like they're having a little moment of being back. I mean, New Balance is doing so well in many different ways. I was wearing, you know, Adidas Stan Smiths and things like that. Like I have pics of my mom.
So Mellany was doing this before any of this was in like top 10 shoes to buy. Mellany was doing it from the get.
Yeah, well, credit due to my parents, who first and foremost were just making sure that the expressions even for the kids were like thoughtful and like classics, you know? I've got pictures of my mom in like the 80s wearing like Adidas Gazelles, just looking hard as hell, you know? So good. So here I am today with a steel toe Air Force One. She's
ready. She's ready to knock them down.
Yeah.
So if you see Mellany walking through the streets with these, you better cross.
Yeah.
Wait, but what? So when is the last? I mean, you keep them because it's an archival piece. I take it, right?
Right, and I think that that's why this piece is here, kind of today for this conversation, because it's like I obviously connect these things like so deeply sometimes, so emotionally. Like I'm bringing up my childhood, I'm bringing up my parents, I'm bringing up decades I never lived in, right? So to kind of justify why these things take up space in my world. And I think like as I just entered into my 30s, I'm like re-looking at my space. I'm redesigning my space right now with a really talented designer, Christine. And I think I'm looking at things and I'm like, well, why do I hold on to that, right? So it's like, it's nice to sit down with you and like unpack what the hell this is, because of course, like, of course keep it or of course toss it. But it's like, I've been thinking about why has that taken up space? Why has it been okay for me to hold on to so many sneakers, you know?
Everyone has
Therapy session with you.
It's
Clearly.
gonna be $30 copay. I take Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, Oscar, whatever. I'm here. Well, just kidding. So no, and I think everyone has their thing with keeping I think it's okay to keep archival pieces. I think sometimes if you're feeling suffocated, then you need to reevaluate what you're keeping. But this is great. Yeah. It tells a story. It tells a history. I think it's good. You also designed a shoe with Nike. You collaborated with them. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, that I could talk about for so long because that has become such a big part of my world. But I think, in 2019, Nike asked me to kind of jump on board to help them storytell and build a shoe around how they celebrate the Puerto Rican community for 2021.
Are you Puerto Rican by any chance?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Yes.
Huh. Maybe they just really wanted a nice Irish girl from Minnesota to design their shoe. You never know.
I'm an authentic representative of the community, and especially because when brands, especially with that project, they're not just trying to speak to Puerto Ricans, they're trying to talk to New Yorkers. They're really trying to identify with a style community that is the Puerto Rican community of, sneaker collectors and kind of style leaders that are all over and up in New York, which is a huge, huge community that has been doing incredible, things for style and social movement and political movement for decades. So the presence of that community in New York has been major since, early 1900s. Really, you think about the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. I'm still sort of learning through all that history, and it's been it probably will be a lifelong journey for me to really understand what all of that has been. But anyway, so Nike asked me in 2019. I end up kind of getting on board, and I bring in this shoe. We did a Nike Air Max Silver Bullet, which is an Air Max 97. It's a really classic model, which was, for me, the point of that project was to kind of align with Nike to give the community something that felt was a standard, was a classic. It was sort of you're aligning with us, give us one of your hitters, So for me, the Silver Air Max is one of the best shoes of all time. So getting that shoe for the community with our flag on it, I think was a really sort of iconic gesture from the brand to say that we have sort of a permanent placement in their values, because that's a shoe that's part of their legacy, and they've given it to the community's heritage, collectorship, all of this. It's so fashion, it's so much about style, it's so connected. And I think I've just found it to be so much more interesting to tell stories in that way. And we were talking earlier about sort of pivoting our worlds and how we're storytelling differently. And I feel as a stylist, I think my strong suit is actually geared more towards this kind of thinking and storytelling than it is dressing, Well,
I think whenever you dress someone, you're informed by storytelling. Even when you were dressing Drake, no, I did an article on it because I was so impressed because I saw Mellany and what he was wearing, not overtly, but I knew it was you. Just the details, the work that went into finding the right quality, the right fit, and what brands you want to align them with. Now we have moved over to Mellany's suitcase. What brand is this?
It's a Rimowa.
Of course. Okay, so, Mellany lives a suitcase life. She's always on set. She's always flying somewhere. So she's got a suitcase with her. How appropriate. And one thing I see right here is I see a leather handle popping out of this dust bag. So we're going to bring it over to the couch and we're going to talk about it.
This is a new Bottega Arco tote. It's a medium Arco tote in suede. Oh, it feels so nice to touch right now.
Wait, okay. So I personally want to weigh in on this bag because I am not, you know me. Everything I own is from Poshmark, eBay, some secondhand site, Real, love you. But I never buy new. Right. I don't buy new because I get nervous about quality. I think it's too hypey, too trendy, so I never do it. So when you pulled this bag out, I was like, oh, I didn't even realize it was, I thought this was old Bottega, late 90s Bottega. No, this is actually new Bottega, sorry, Daniel Lee. And I have to say, I really like it. I love I actually really like it. I just did a story on luxury totes, and I actually quoted you, or quiet luxury bags.
Quiet luxury. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, hit the nail. No, I just did a story on quiet luxury bags and how, I don't like logos. I don't like any defining characteristics. And this is the most amazing example of a quiet luxury bag, which leads me to ask, why haven't you worn it?
That's such a good question. It's funny because just bringing this to you right now makes me feel like, damn, this feels so good, this bag. And I'm like, well, why haven't I worn it? I've had this bag since 2019. I bought it at Bottega on Madison with my favorite saleswoman there, Schimmel. Shout out to Schimmel. I haven't worn this bag. I know exactly why. It's because it's a tote. It's because it's this top handle situation. And I think my lifestyle is sort of like this bigger work bag vibe if I am carrying a bag, or stuffed pockets. And so I think when I bought this bag, I had this intention that like, I'm going to transition into this woman who can handle such a bag, or even, fit it on such a day. But it never ends up being that. So it requires like a lifestyle or like a mentality shift that I haven't made, but I want to talk through it.
Wait, okay, so what is that mentality shift, and what is this woman who is wearing this bag carrying in her bag? What does her day look like?
So this bag can fit my MacBook, a reading book, my planner, a water bottle, like things like that I'll need like to take myself through a day. But I think it has kind of lived in my mind as almost more precious than it actually is. Maybe because it's suede and I'm like, where am I going to put this thing down? And like have to hold it all day long. It doesn't really feel like something I can sling on. And so it just kind of got more and more into this place where it was like, not that bag today, not that bag today. 3 years later, I've never worn the bag.
Wow. Yo, and Bottega bags aren't cheap. Not to call you out, but they are not cheap.
Yeah.
Wow, I really like it though, because your days right now, when I envision Mellany, like you're either on set carrying the big bag, or you're going out to meet me and you're carrying the tiny bag. So it's like, where does she fit in? And you're not a coffee shop. You're not really a coffee shop work girl.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not toting like just a few things to a coffee shop. I feel, especially post-COVID, I'm very like my days are so structured because I got so used to like, if I'm going to a certain area, I'm like hitting all the spots I need to hit in that area. So my days are kind of structured. There's a lot going on. Probably going to take a bigger bag. Probably going to leave space for like if I shop or if I'm carrying things for a shoot. If I'm styling or heading to work, I'm most likely carrying a piece of luggage or a much bigger bag. So
there's just no room for her.
Right?
She's pretty, but there's no room.
She's here. I'm reminded of the feel.
Listen, it's a great bag. It's actually, and you know what? If you're gonna do Bottega, you should do this style bag.
Yeah,
I can't.
Color.
This color is really, this deep chocolate is delicious. I can't do the hypey. I can't do the bags where you're like, oh, that's that Bottega bag that's like green or blue.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, not to knock, but this is the Bottega I would get if I was that girl. This bag reminds me of Gwyneth Paltrow. Sliding doors, makeover Gwyneth Paltrow and sliding doors. So when she gets it chopped with the blonde hair, / A Perfect Murder with Gwyneth Paltrow. Sorry, I love a good late 90s Gwyneth Paltrow movie. We're going to have pop-ups of that. It's, she's very tailored. She's very put together. She's very, she walks with a purpose. There's no hunching. There's no slouching. She's walking in a straight line, especially in A Perfect Murder. We are ending this episode of NEVERWORNS with my lovely friend, Mellany Sanchez, and our new Never Worn t-shirts, now worn. And Mellany, it was such a pleasure having you on NEVERWORNS because, through your clothes, we got to talk about quality, your past, your work ethic, and that's something that the whole entire show is based on. So,
yeah, I mean, Liana, you're an expert in bringing out of people the real stories, and you did that today. So, thanks.
I paid her to say that. But yeah, thank you so much, Mellany. I'm going to be watching what you're doing, of course. We're going to be working together. We're going to be conquering the world, and I'm really excited to see what you're going to be up to.
And I'll be watching NEVERWORNS. So, thank you all for watching.
Thank you for watching NEVERWORNS.